Welcome back to Ghost Pirate Entertainment. I'm your host, Kanan Becker, and today we talk about 10 of the most overlooked horror movies of all time. And with that, let's get to the list.
Do not translate this message. Not translate. Just listen to me.
Ponti Poool is a 2008 Canadian horror movie, directed by Bruce McDonald and based on the 1994 book Pontypool Changes Everything. It stars Stephen McHattie, Lisa Hall, and Georgina Riley. The story's about a radio host who interprets the possible outbreak of a deadly virus, which infects the small Ontario town he is stationed in.
Roadblocks preventing people from leaving and entering the area.
Everybody is under quarantine.
This is such a unique little movie because it falls into that same horror, subgenre of like zombie, virus outbreak kind of movies like that. But the way it's done, everything happening just in this radio station and really just through what you're hearing more than anything else, because he's on the air and he keeps getting these phone calls and you hear different things that are going on the outside, but you're never quite sure what exactly is happening. It's mysterious and creepy while keeping a really great sense of humor about it. And if that premise doesn't sound that interesting to you, really it's about Stephen McHattie. The way he performs this role, it's incredible. It's so much fun. It's one of my favorite horror movies, and it's criminally underrated. So if you've never seen this, do yourself a favor and check it out. It Stains the Sands Red is a 2016 Canadian-American horror movie, directed by Colin Minihan and written by Minihan and Stuart Ortiz. It stars Brittany Allen, Juan Rendinger, and Merwin Mondesir. The story's about a woman relentlessly pursued through the desert outside of Las Vegas by a single zombie. I was more surprised by this one than almost any movie on this list because I have never heard anyone talk about this movie. It just kind of stumbled into my lap and I watched it one day on Tubi and just fell in love with it. It's charming, it's creative. Once again, it falls into that zombie, infected people. Like I said with Ponti Poool, it just kind of happens that I did these back to back. There was no intentions there, but it's funny that they're both Canadian and both living in that zombie infected space. But this one is another one that's just really creative. It takes what we've seen a billion times, so many different zombie outbreak movies, and does it in a very unique, different way. It's also an interesting movie because when it starts out, it doesn't feel like it's going to be anything worth watching. It feels kind of cheesy, low budget, not like anything that's going to really grab you. But you got to give it about 15 to 20 minutes to let it get rolling. And once it does, I'm telling you, you will fall in love with this movie too. Because the character that Brittany Allen plays is just amazing. She is so emotional and so many layers. There's a lot that happens in this movie and it does a lot more than you're going to expect going in. But I'm not going to say anything else because I don't want to spoil this. I want you to see it for yourself. But it's definitely a movie that I highly, highly recommend.
Near dark, pray for daylight.
Near Dark is a 1987 neo-western horror movie. Directed by Catherine Bigelow, it stars Adrian Pasdar, Bill Paxton, and Lance Hendrickson. The plot follows a young man in a small Oklahoma town who becomes involved with a family of nomadic vampires.
Just don't think of it as killing.
Evening.
Don't think at all. It's just something that you do night after night. It's only ever a question of how.
I was really late to the party on this. It wasn't until last year when I made my vampire video that I finally saw this movie. I had a whole bunch of you guys telling me, you gotta see Near Dark, you need to see Near Dark. and I was like, I had never even heard of it. I still don't understand how I was able to watch as many movies as I do, and yet one as popular as this skipped me by. But that just goes to show you that no matter how many movies you watch, no matter who you are, you're definitely gonna always have movies to watch. But this has got to be up there with my favorite performances from Bill Paxton. And to be honest, this is one of my favorite vampire movies ever now. It's very cool because it doesn't feel like your traditional vampire movie at all. It's very much like an old Western kind of vibe to it. But it's exciting and fun and stylish. It gets gory and graphic at times. And I just love the way it shows vampires in this. They're just unique in their own way. But it has one incredible scene after the next. It's so exciting, so intense, and it really blows my mind because as much as I do think this is a cult favorite kind of movie, like most of the movies on this list, it is not mainstream popular at all. And that's a real tragedy because it definitely deserves more love than it gets.
Run Red.
The Hills Run Red is a 2009 slasher horror movie, directed by Dave Parker and written by David J. Shaw. It stars Sophie Monk, Tad Hildenbrink, and William Sadler. A group of horror movie fanatics are looking for the filming location for a movie that has been rated as the bloodiest movie of all time. However, they soon discover something more brutal and sinister than any horror movie.
Why the movie? Why is it so important to you?
Because people said it's the scariest thing they've ever seen.
This has been one of my favorite hidden gem, underappreciated horror movies for many, many years now. I know this doesn't work for everyone. I've heard a lot of people just shit on this. But for me personally anyway, I think this movie is incredible because it's dark and gritty and graphic and just brutal and savage. It's like this dirty underbelly, and yet it's well polished, well put together. The mask, the way this movie looks, but especially, like I said, the mask of Babyface is so fucking badass. I've even made a few replica masks of this for Halloween a couple times in the past because I just think it's so cool, and yet it's impossible to find someone that makes a really quality version of it. But I think if you're a fan of slashers and weird, gritty, dark horror movies, you'll definitely dig this one. But either way you slice it, this movie is really hidden. You never hear anyone talk about it. And I personally think it's a real gem and one you should absolutely add to your list.
Only demons should fear me. You're not a demon, are you?
Frailty is a 2001 Southern Gothic psychological horror movie. Directed and starring Bill Paxton, it also stars Matthew McConaughey and Powers Booth. A mysterious man arrives at the office of an FBI agent and recounts his childhood, how his religious fanatic father received visions telling him to destroy people who were in fact demons.
Wake up, I've got something to tell you.
What's wrong?
There are demons among us. I can see the demons, while other people can.
This is one I've mentioned on the channel a few times. I just don't think it ever gets the attention, the recognition that it truly deserves. Because like I mentioned with Near Dark, that was one of my favorite performances from Bill Paxton. This is my favorite performance of him. He is incredible in this, and then on top of it, he also directs this. But this takes so many twists and turns and keeps you guessing throughout the entire movie. It's very much a mystery as much as it is a horror movie. But Matthew McConaughey is great, and so is Powers Booth. Just all of them give these incredible, powerful, emotional performances. But it looks fantastic. The cinematography, the way it's shot, the way it's edited, the pacing of it. It really is a crime that this is not talked about more, but I think without a doubt, it's one of the best underrated horror movies ever made.
I want to come home. I am so sorry.
Session 9 is a 2001 psychological horror movie, directed by Brad Anderson and written by Anderson and Stephen Gavin. It stars David Caruso, Peter Mullen, Josh Lucas, and Brendan Sexton III. Tensions rise with an asbestos cleaning crew as they work on an abandoned mental hospital with a horrific past that seems to be coming back.
I gotta get construction crews in here by Columbus Day, so
You got a guesstimate how long?
I've got 4 really good guys. 1 week, we're gone. That's fast. I need the job.
God, this movie is incredible. And it's just another one that just blows me away over the years that more people don't talk about this. It does finally have a cult following, but not nearly like it should, especially with the cast that it has, the story that it tells. It's so twisted and uncomfortable and creepy. It's another one that keeps you guessing the entire movie because you just really don't know what's going on in this, what exactly the situation is, really up until the very end. But the way that it's told is so captivating, just keeps you in the grip of it for the entire runtime. This is just so good and one you absolutely need to see.
We're right where he wants us. All of us.
You have to tell me. What happens to me?
Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon is a 2006 mockumentary slasher. Directed by Scott Glosserman, it stars Nathan Basil, Angela Goethals, and Robert Englund. The story is about the next great psycho horror slasher, who is given a documentary crew exclusive access to his life, as he plans his reign of terror over the sleepy town of Glen Echo.
It's ridiculous. There's that whole thing of making it look like you're walking. Everybody else is running their asses off.
This is just so much fun. It's so entertaining. It's really cool because it almost is like 2 movies in one, because the first 2/3 of it are basically a documentary. Like I just said, it's a mockumentary style of movie where this crew of filmmakers are following around this guy who's basically a Freddy or a Jason. He's the next crazy psycho killer, like these guys. And it talks about all the tropes in the most meta way. It takes place in this universe where Freddy and Jason and Michael and all these famous killers really exist, where these movie villains are real people, and he's following in their footsteps. He wants to become the next great one, and it just goes through him talking and showing you all these different things on different tropes, and how the slasher killer is able to look like he's walking really slow but actually keep up, and all the fun things like that. So it's very funny and very entertaining in that regard. But then in the final act, it turns into a really quality slasher horror movie where he is that villain and he is chasing people and all of that. And so it gets a little gory, it gets a little brutal, but just in general, it's one of the best meta horror movie comedies ever done. And he's also a badass. His mask is creepy and fun, and the scenes where he does do his killing are really high quality. They look fantastic and creepy and moody. This is just a fantastic movie that really has flown under the radar in the horror world for so many years. I've been hoping that one day they would make a sequel, but it doesn't look like that's ever gonna happen. But either way, this is still a treasure. It's definitely one that the people that know. This movie is incredible and definitely one that deserves to be on this list.
You're safe now. Safe from what?
The Night House is a 2020 psychological horror movie. Directed by David Bruckner, it stars Rebecca Hall, Sarah Goldberg, and Evan Jonenkeat. The story is about a widow who begins to uncover her recently deceased husband's disturbing secrets.
There is nothing. Nothing is after you. You're safe now.
So this was my #1 pick for horror movie of the year in 2020. It just moved me in so many ways. It's emotional and dark and dramatic and disturbing and uncomfortable and so many things that make for an amazing horror movie. But the way it looks, the pacing of it, I just adore the directing style of David Bruckner. And to this point, this is my favorite movie that he's done. But the real star, the thing that really shines with this movie, is the performance of Rebecca Hall, who I have just become the biggest fan of now. It just seems like everything she does, she just knocks it out of the park. And it just blows my mind, kind of like with Mia Goth, that you don't hear Hollywood knocking on their door. You don't hear more buzz about these performers. But as much as that frustrates me, that the Oscars don't give love to these actors, It's nice that we as horror fans still get them and get to appreciate them. And this has got to be right up there with my favorite performances that Rebecca Hall has ever given. It's just so moving. There's so many layers to it. But the way they show this force, this entity, the way it's portrayed is so disturbing to me. Just so uncomfortable and really just got under my skin and stuck with me for a long time after. But I think this movie is brilliant and definitely deserves way more attention than it gets. The Empty Man is a 2020 supernatural horror movie, written and directed by David Pryor in his directorial debut. It stars James Badge Dale, Marion Ireland, and Stephen Root. On the trail of a missing girl, an ex-cop comes across a secretive group attempting to summon a terrifying supernatural entity.
On the first night, you hear him. And on the second night, you see him.
And on the third night?
Well, on the third night, he finds you.
Talk about an amazing, unique movie. This has got it all. It's very different feeling than anything really I've ever seen. It has definite elements from other things, but at its core, it's very refreshing because it's got those cult vibes, it's got the supernatural thing going on, it's twisted, it takes all these different directions, and it's so layered. The performances, the different storytelling that's in it, it just has so many layers to it that it actually is hard to unpack it all in the first viewing. It really is a movie that on a second watch was when I even appreciated it more. But I was fortunate enough to see this in theaters. Most people saw it when it came out on HBO a while later, but in this small window in like September or October of 2020, this was in theaters and I was able to go see it. And I didn't realize at the time how fortunate I was to get to see this or any movie for that matter in theaters that year, because just very few movies were out. But it's still not getting the attention it deserves. It did get a little viral-ish moment when Chris Stuckman talked about it and a few other creators, but as well done as this is in every single horror level, I think it deserves to be talked about much more than it does. And David Pryor is one of those young filmmakers out there that I'm really excited about. He did my favorite segment in the Cabinet of Curiosities over on Netflix, and that was incredible too. So I just can't wait to see more of what David Pryor does. But this movie is without a doubt underrated and phenomenal. It's one that you absolutely have to see.
Why don't you just kill the living? Are you listening to me?
Don't you believe me?
No.
Tough.
Cemetery Man is a 1994 comedy horror movie directed by Michelle Sovey. It stars Rupert Everett, Francois Hagia-Lazaro, and Anna Falchi. The plot's about a cemetery caretaker who must kill the dead a second time when they come back to life as zombies.
I don't know how the epidemic started. All I know is that some people, on the seventh night after their death, come back to life.
I just do not get it. I don't understand why this movie is not more loved, why it is not bigger. Like, I don't know the whole story behind it. I'm sure there is one. But to this day, this movie is still practically impossible to even rent. The only place I was even able to find it to watch was for free on YouTube. So I don't get it. I don't know what the distribution problem with this is, but this movie has everything that a cult classic has, especially ones from the 80s and 90s. It's funny, it's entertaining, it has a great look about it. Like, this movie looks so macabre, but in the most beautiful, fantastical kind of way. There's just this fantasy, creepy, dark, gorgeous style to it. But the main character is so much fun. He's also a badass. There's elements of Ash to him because he's just this real heroic, badass that is cool under pressure, like never really loses his cool. But then at the same time, he just has a unique style to him as well. But I just cannot express to you how gorgeous this movie is, from the pacing, the set location, the props, the way everything is designed and put together. It's beautiful, but in this gothic-y, creepy, unsettling way. But it's also pretty damn funny, but without losing sight that it's a horror movie. So it does have its creepy moments. It does get spooky and unnerving. So it really has it all. It's just so much fun, a great story, and it's unique, very original. Like, I just adore this movie, and I cannot express to you more how sad it is, like truly sad that this does not get a bigger distribution, that it's not on Netflix, not on Hulu, more people don't talk about it. I don't get it at all. It's just a travesty. But without a doubt, this is definitely my most underrated, most underappreciated, overlooked horror movie, because for as good as it is, you just never hear it talked about. But it is a film that I highly, highly, highly recommend. But that's gonna do it for me today. If you guys enjoyed this list, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and ding that little bell, because that is the best way to keep track of this channel and when I post videos like this, and I post videos like this every single week. I also want to give a huge, massive, enormous thank you to the Ghost Pirate crew, to you guys over on Patreon, and to the channel members over here. You guys mean so much to me. And if you would like to help support this channel over on Patreon, there's a link down in the description. Or if you want to become a channel member and help support the channel that way, there's a button right down there that says join. But like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button, and remember, guys, horror can be fun! And if you enjoyed this, click right here to watch me talk about 10 recommendations over on Prime Video. And I'll see you guys next time!